Hey toy collectors, welcome to another super exciting, outrageous toy review. Today we're talking about JoeFest. Friday morning we had breakfast at the hotel restaurant with a couple of dealers that came from New Orleans that were friends with Dave. That was a great opportunity to get to hear about collecting in other areas. They actually run a show down their way, which was cool. JoeFest started on Friday afternoon.
JoeFest is back for its 4th year in Augusta.
JoeFest is the South's largest toy and comic show. We're 40,000 square feet of nothing but pop culture collectibles, toys, comics, anything you can find.
Tell me, what brings you here today to JoeFest?
My buddies and I traveled from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to check out this show. It's always got a great selection of vintage and modern toys, and we're looking for things to complete our collections. That was when the show floor opened. There was a ton of awesome stuff. Chris Neal's booth, he owns the toy department, which I've been to before on a previous road trip, was like the biggest vendor there, had so much amazing stuff. We kind of hung out by his booth when the showroom opened. Dave was really trying to get a couple of, higher end items that Chris had. And then after that, it was kind of all hell breaks loose and just looking for stuff. I bought parts, I bought accessories, I bought a few loose figures, just kind of all over the place. A big portion of my first day haul came from Destro's Toy Den. I picked up a ton of parts, as well as a Canadian stickered All-Striker. Check that out. You don't see one of those every day. And I don't actually own a vintage All-Striker, and I've been meaning to kind of fix that considering they've reused the mold a million times. I got lots of gear for my incomplete army builders, a whole mess more accessories. I picked up a Spirit figure. The waist piece on mine broke, and so I needed a new one of those. I picked up a spare version of the blue Snake Eyes that came in the DVD pack. Chewbacca's bowcaster from Star Wars. Star Brigade Hawk's gun, and a really nice Chameleon Swamp Skier. From Ben, who we had breakfast with, I picked up an uncut Secto Viper file card and Cold Fronts file card. From Chris Neal, I got Raiden from the Mortal Kombat line. I've been trying to bolster the ranks of those guys, even though they're not actually Joes. They're adjacent cousins. I got a fairly beat-up version of Gears. This is the Power Fighter Pilot. The one in my personal collection has a pretty bad elbow crack, so I bought this guy as possible replacement arms if needed down the road. JoeCon has officially started. You can see the room behind me. It is bustling, but it's really kind of the first day, Friday afternoon, and they're open for people with, like kind of the premium passes. So, not everybody's here yet. Not even all the vendors are quite set up. But it's hustling and bustling down there. Stuff is flying off the shelves. I don't know the vendor's name, but he had a whole bunch of these little kids' meal packs. This one you can see has a micro figure of Bazooka, as well as the Persuader tank. This one has a miniature Mobat and Grunt inside. Robert Russ hooked me up with some awesome stickers. From another dealer, I picked up 3 booster rockets to the Crusader, hoping I picked the right ones to make mine a little better shape, as well as a fin. I got 2 missiles and a cockpit cover to the Defiant space shuttle, a couple of Night Force missiles, a Tiger Force torpedo bomb, Storm Shadow version 2 sword, and an Uzi for low light or Law and Order. I was digging through bins at Matt Collins' booth, and out of the purple one, I got a couple guns for my Dreadnought cycles, Lifeline backpack, some Kenner Robocop guns. I got a custom Max the Bobcat. I love this because some kid had fun with this, and that just kind of cracks me up. Rapid fire armor, a Star Wars blaster. I know it's broken. A nightstick, some other guns here. This is the mail-away internet exclusive Overkill. Friday night there was another lobby swap. Again, it was similar, but there was more people involved. It took over not just the lobby, but part of the hallway of the hotel, walking around, checking out stuff, talking to other collectors. It's always a good time. Those kind of things are almost just as fun as the showroom floor, because you're getting to see merchandise from people that aren't career vendors. You're getting to hear a little bit more about different people's experience on the road because there's just more fan communication going on at the lobby swap than there is on the show floor necessarily. Because the show floor, there's just so much more volume and so much more people. The lobby swaps are a little bit more intimate, which is kind of nice. Time for the lobby swap. Friday night at the lobby swap, I picked up this empty liquid cleanser bottle featuring some great G.I. Joe artwork on there, as well as a stack of file cards. Star Brigade Cobra Commander, Star Brigade Duke, Gristle, Roadblock, Keelhaul, Duke, Skydive, Crimson Guard, Blast Off, Clutch, and Mirage. Saturday morning we had breakfast at the hotel restaurant again, and then hit the showroom floor. This time, I was a little bit more focused. I had already hit some of these people like Destro's Toy Den for parts and things like that, but I went back with my Mark Bellomo book and tried to really hit stuff, not only things that I thought I needed, but stuff that was like marked down that I needed. You know, one of the vendors, Matt, had bins based on like sort of by colors. And so having my book made it easier to go, okay, what do I need that's red? That is tough, though, on a showroom floor. It gets very almost claustrophobic. You're in a booth and you're trying to like hold your book and hold a bin and sift, and there's people around you trying to get to other bins, and that can be a little bit messy. On Saturday, I picked up more accessories from Destro's Toy Den, as well as a Viper Glider Pilot file card. We've been walking around the show floor all morning. I've been working on trying to collect more parts I need. I picked up a couple of good file cards this morning also, which was great. My buddy Nick spent a bunch of time getting a ton of figures he needs to complete his collection, which is really good. And Dave's been picking up some awesome stuff as well. I visited Matt Collins' booth again with my Mark Bellomo book. I found a couple of yellow missiles I needed, Sonic Fighter, Roadblocks, Mortar. I also picked up an Iron Grenadier gun. Actually broke off from my friends for a while. Dave and Nick were really focused on the showroom floor and picking things up for their collections. I actually went to a bunch of the panels. I went to the 3D Joe's panel, and Carson talked to us about Operation Recall. If you haven't heard about that, basically, he got all the people that used to work for Hasbro, like Kurt Berzigian and Ron Rudat and Larry Hama, and he got them to help him create basically a G.I. Joe that he had submitted the idea to Hasbro as a kid. He had like his letter that he sent to Hasbro and the rejection letter, like saying we can't accept your submission, and he kind of pitched that idea. Ron made some sketches and some ideas. Kurt looked at them, shot down some things, suggested some more changes. Ron worked on that again. That whole thing went to Bill Merkline, who sculpted the figures, and Carson went and filmed him sculpting a figure. It also went to an artist to paint the cardback art, and they used a 3D modeler to create the accessories, and kind of the whole deal. They were just basically waiting for Larry to write the file card and name the figure, and that was kind of a neat thing to see and hear about the whole experience of kind of doing the process again. And there's hopefully going to be a documentary that Carson's working on where everyone will get to see the whole process kind of in depth, which I'm pretty excited about. After that, the next panel was Mark Weber, who is a host on What's on Joe Mind. He is a former brand ambassador, brand designer. I forget his exact job title, but he worked for G.I. Joe under Daryl DePriest, and he talked about some of the things that they were doing, some of the things that got canceled when Toys R Us ended the vehicle packs after G.I. Joe Retaliation. He talked about things he had pitched if he was going to do a 35th or a 40th anniversary line and try and recreate all the original 1982 figures using some of the old molds and some updated molds for the, the 25th anniversary style figures. He also talked about some suggestions he has for Hasbro if they're trying to keep G.I. Joe alive. Little packaging things, basically. And all that was really interesting to hear. After that panel, then, Mark Pennington had a panel. Carson from 3D Joe's hosted it, along with G.I. Joe Classifieds. And Ron Rudat designed the figures from 1982 to 1986. Mark Pennington was brought in after that to finish up the stuff being designed in 86 for 87, and he worked for several years after that. So he talked about designing Payload and Skidmark and Darklon and Outback and Alley Viper. Had a lot of interesting stories. You know, he basically said, like with Alley Viper's colors, they would make these color studies, and they would do 3 or 4 that they liked, and often do something, you know, strange or odd just for variety. And he said sometimes they'd pick the really weird color scheme, and that's how Alley Viper ended up being so colorful. He talked about working on Storm Shadow version 2 and how he really wanted that to be a great figure because he knows how important the character was. He also talked about working on Snake Eyes version 3, and he actually really doesn't like how Snake Eyes version 3 turned out. He didn't really like how the knives were silver on his chest, and he just kind of wishes if he could go back, that's the one figure he would kind of do better, because he felt like he choked a little bit. It was not as iconic as the ones that Ron had done before that. But, you know, Snake Eyes version 2 is a tough act to follow. After the panels, I met back up with my friends. We ended up eating lunch somewhere in there at the Boll Weevil, which was at this like deli across the street from the hotel, and it was really, really good. We actually went back to the Boll Weevil for dinner that night. We got takeout so we could eat it in the room and just kind of relax a little bit, but the line was out the door at this place for dessert. They serve cakes that are humongous. Just absolutely insanely large slices of cake. They had red velvet, they had a peanut butter pie, they had just a whole bunch of desserts. We didn't have any that night, but I had a Reuben that was delicious for lunch that day. I had a club sandwich that night that was great. They had really good sweet tea there. It was an enjoyable restaurant experience, and it was nice that we weren't always stuck in the restaurant hotel, because it was very busy all the time. So it was nice being able to kind of just walk across the street and have other options. Some hotels, you get that at a convention, and other places, the hotel isn't around anything else, so you don't really have a lot of options. After dinner, there was again a lobby swap. So we went out and walked around. I talked to Jason Merle from the Order of Battle podcast. I picked up some more stuff. The Saturday night lobby swap yielded me this really nice Serpentor figure, who I think is going to upgrade my collection nicely. And this makes the second time I've been to a convention that was also hosting a wedding at the same time. Loads of fun mingling Joe fans with happy people getting married. I picked up a Sonic Fighter dial tone. His card is loose. The figure and the backpack are basically open, but it does give me a complete set of weapons as well as a full card back. I did just pick up a couple of these accessories earlier in the day from Destro's Toy Den, but that's okay, because I still needed a few of them anyway. And I also picked up this amazing G.I. Joe coloring book. Got Major Storm, Rock and Roll in the front. I think that's Hardball and Ambush, maybe? Is Topside flying the Locust? I don't think the artwork in the book is the best, but it is interesting to see the brand promoted this way. Is that Downtown shouting at Snake Eyes? It was a really enjoyable evening, and then it was time to go to sleep for Sunday. Sunday morning, we got up very early. We packed the car, and then went inside and got breakfast at the hotel restaurant, and then we were back on the show floor for one last lap around, see if there's anything else we wanted. From Andrew, who is right between Robert Rust and Jason Merle's Order of the Battle table, I picked up a couple of missiles to my Slaughter Marauder Armadillo, another Ram motorcycle sidecar and kickstand, and the missile to Range Viper. On Sunday morning, I knew I wanted to get at least one of these drivers still sealed in their red bubbles from Chris Neal. I picked up Zanzibar. I bought a complete red barricade. This was another figure that I wanted to try and upgrade in my collection. The current one has a broken waist piece. And I picked up a Fun School carded Storm Shadow. And then it was time to head home. In addition to Dave buying the Motu Classics Castle Grayskull for me at the beginning of the trip, he was also supposed to be picking up a Motu Classic Snake Mountain from a guy in Virginia on the way home. This created an interesting challenge for us because we needed to hit this guy's house at a certain time. He had a 3-hour block of window that he wasn't going to be home, and we needed to get there before that or after that. And there was just no way we were getting there before it because we wanted a little bit of time at the show in the morning. So that dictated when we could leave. And there was like, if anything happened, any kind of traffic, we weren't going to get to his house on time. So we knew we were going to be stuck kind of blowing a little time later on in the trip. So we did stop for lunch. We ate lunch at Ruby Tuesdays. Then we drove some more. We actually drove by the guy's house before he was going to be home. And we hit a Wawa that was down there, which is a convenience store regionally, you know, very common where we live. We didn't necessarily know Wawas were common in Virginia. I know they're down in Florida quite a bit nowadays. But we went there to grab our dinner, just a light dinner to eat on the road, because we weren't starving. We had a nice lunch earlier. But while we were there, Dave got a text that the guy was going to be home a little bit earlier than we had expected, which was great. We didn't have to burn as much time. So we went back to his place, picked up Snake Mountain. He was a super friendly guy, was into all kinds of crazy collecting stuff, and actually knows Jamie Sullivan, who's an artist on the G.I. Joe comics, and his face was used as the art for Ace on Jamie's big 5-panel cover that featured all the G.I. Joes. So that was kind of cool. He told me about that. He actually gave me a free copy of that issue because Jamie had hooked him up with a whole bunch of copies of it. So we had to rearrange the car. Nick and Dave shuffled all the different things that we had bought along the trip to fit Snake Mountain in, and we were back on the road. We did hit a fair amount of traffic after that point in Virginia as we're heading up towards Maryland. We went through D.C. There were some cool opportunities to see the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial, and even the Dome of the Capitol building lit up at night as we went through D.C. We eventually got back to Baltimore to drop Dave off. It took a couple trips to bring all his stuff inside. And this was actually the first time Nick and I were ever at Dave's place in Baltimore. And so we got to go inside and see his collection. We hung out there for a little bit. It was really cool to get to see his stuff. I mean, we knew that he had an impressive collection, and everybody displays their stuff differently. And Dave's things are kind of really packed in tight. But it was neat. It was really cool to see all his stuff. He actually hooked us up each with a few accessories that we were looking for at the show that, we didn't find on the showroom floor, which was awesome. Dave hooked me up with a long peg backpack for Grunt and Breaker, as well as a Python Patrol Copperhead backpack. And then we were off again, back to drive the last leg of the trip back to Nick's. At Nick's, I got my stuff back in the truck, and then I headed back to my house. I just drove back from Nick's place to my place. This kind of is where the story ends, and I think it's kind of interesting that I left my house in the dark with the Motu Classics Castle Grayskull in the seat next to me that Dave was buying off of me. And now I'm ending the story with the Motu Origins Castle Grayskull in the seat next to me that I picked up on the trip. I hope you enjoyed the journey to JoeFest and all of my haul from the show. I didn't buy anything crazy extravagant. I actually bought, mostly a lot of parts and things like that. But I'm really happy with what I picked up, and thanks for watching this super exciting, outrageous tour review. Make sure to like, subscribe, check out my other videos.